Some fans gear up for game day, but some fans follow their team every day. That's why the Locked On Podcast Network has a daily podcast for your favorite NFL team. Every trade, every overtime win, every game. Our local experts cover the biggest stories around your team every day. Search Locked On plus your favorite NFL team on the Odyssey app or wherever you get podcasts. The Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Dig your vinyl, man.
My budget doesn't. Calling time on collecting.
Don't give it up. State Farm has options to get you a surprisingly great rate.
Rock on.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
.335, Jeff Katz, News Radio, WRVA. I mean, it is hysterical. It really is. It's hysterical, and it's sad to hear the continual, they got Trump. Oh, they're going to get this guy. They're going to get that guy. Listen, I know it's easy. I really do. There are some days where you just don't want to do much work, right? So you go, all right, it's an easy one. And for the legacy news media hacks, it's always Trump. Oh, yeah, now they're going to get him. It's like, oh, please, give it a break already. Anyway, listen, it is Wednesday afternoon. Tomorrow afternoon, our friend Jason Miyares, the Attorney General of our beloved Commonwealth, is going to be here. Yesterday, we were listening to... what's his name, the current school superintendent for the Richmond Public Schools, explain why children will have to wear masks in schools, even as the CDC is saying, hey, everything's good, we're all good to go, and let's get back to normal, right? Or at least sort of kind of. Up in Philadelphia, city of my birth, first 10 days of school, everybody in the school is going to have to wear a mask. Day number 11, everybody can take them off. Okay. I mean, it's nonsense. All of this is nonsense. And, you know, one of the things that is so nonsensical is that there were people who had developed natural immunity because they had contracted COVID. They had made this in their own bodies, the way we've done with, I think, just about every other ailment that we've seen come down the line. Mark Chenoweth is the president, the general counsel of the New Civil Liberties Alliance. This is an issue that, frankly, they've been fighting since day one, and I'm happy to have him join us. Mark, thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us where you are as far as the CDC. Are they now agreeing with everything you've said all along?
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say they're agreeing with everything, but they are admitting that natural immunity is real, which is a big step forward from where they have been. For the last year, not only has CDC been refusing to admit that natural immunity exists, something that scientists have known for decades, if not longer, but they have actively worked to censor any scientists out there who have been defending natural immunity, and they've certainly been pushing back against our litigation.
So remind everybody about the matters that you had brought, and who were they brought on behalf of?
Sure, we have brought a number of lawsuits. I won't have time here to go into all of them, but what they have in common is that we are representing individuals who have recovered from COVID-19. They have proven antibodies in their system from having recovered from COVID-19, and yet they have been forced to get a vaccination or coerced into getting a vaccination either by a school, by a public employer like a state university. We have a lawsuit against Michigan State University, for example, or we have a lawsuit against the state of Rhode Island over it went so far as to try to take away the license of an oral surgeon to practice medicine and dentistry because of his refusal to get a vaccine when he already had natural immunity.
Jeez. So is it done? Are these decisions that have come down, are they now precedent setting, or are people really going to have to fight this over and over and over again?
Well, I'm afraid people are going to have to continue to fight. The problem with the CDC guidance is it was never law. The guidance that an agency puts out itself doesn't have the force of law. That's why it was difficult, if not impossible, for us to directly sue CDC over the guidance. A court would have just looked at that and said, well, this isn't so-called final agency action, and you can't sue over that. But then when you turn around and try to sue a university, for example, that's relying on that guidance, a federal judge says, well, it's reasonable for them to rely on the federal guidance, and so we're not even going to look at the science. We're just going to decide that it's reasonable to rely on the guidance. That's why this new CDC development helps us, because now folks can't rely on that CDC guidance anymore. If they want to keep trying to coerce people, they're going to have to rely on something other than federal guidance. It'll be much harder for them to show that what they're doing is reasonable.
I want to remind everybody, Mark Chenoweth is joining us, President and General Counsel, New Civil Liberties Alliance. And Mark, we here in Central Virginia, we've got some school divisions which are, they're far left-wing outposts, if you will. And even though our governor, first day that he was sworn into office, said it's up to parents. You make the decision. You want your kid to wear a mask? That's okay. You don't want him to wear a mask? That's okay as well. These school divisions are still trying to force children. They're disciplining them. Here in Richmond, just yesterday, we had the school superintendent make this big pronouncement about how he believes everybody should continue to wear masks. Do we have any options? Can we fight back?
So the mask cases are more difficult because there is a something called police power that state and local authorities have, where they can force people to do things that don't infringe on their constitutional rights. And it's harder to make the case that a mask violates your constitutional rights than it is to make the case that forcing you to take an experimental vaccine violates your rights. And so we have not taken any of these mask cases, although we have sued the Fairfax County Public Schools in Virginia. We have sued George Mason University in Virginia. So we're not, we've been paying attention to some of the things that are going on in Virginia, and we've had some success in pushing back on both school districts and state universities with some of their policies. But we haven't gone after the masks ourselves.
Okay, and so for the school, the college level stuff, because I'm hearing about state colleges here in Virginia, I believe VCU is one of them, that says you have to have the vaccine. That is something that a student could push back on.
Well, certainly if that student has natural immunity, they can push back on that very hard. Okay. And that's been the focus of our what we've done. But some of what the CDC has been saying recently is that they're not necessarily distinguishing between vaccinated and unvaccinated the way that they were before either. So I think, and the other thing to remember is these vaccines are still EUA vaccines, meaning emergency use authorization vaccines. And even though, like, the Pfizer vaccine has been approved, what's actually available to these students is still the EUA vaccine. And they have a statutory right under federal law to refuse an EUA vaccine. And so that's where I would, if I were representing one of those students, that's where I would really push back, is on that statutory right.
Okay. All right. And is it possible for folks who are hearing this going, oh my gosh, I got to talk to Mark, or I got to talk to somebody at New Civil Liberties Alliance and get some guidance? Is it possible for them to contact you, read more about what you're doing?
It's certainly possible to read more about it at nclalegal.org. That's our website, nclalegal.org. Folks are welcome to reach out to us as well. As you can imagine, we get inundated with these calls, and we can only help a very small fraction of the folks who reach out to us. So I don't want to create false hope, but we are definitely watching these cases. And I'll tell you what, we're going to start coming after some of these officials in their personal capacity and not just in their official capacity, because with the change in CDC guidance, these officials don't have anything to fall back on if they're going to continue to violate people's civil liberties and constitutional rights.
I love it. Well, Mark, I appreciate you being here. We're going to reach out to you again as all of this continues to unfold. That is Mark Chenoweth. He's the President and General Counsel of the New Civil Liberties Alliance. And remember their website, nclalegal.org. They've had great success pushing back on some of the requirements for vaccinations if you have natural immunity. And now they've been doing that since day one. You may recall we've had them on over the last couple of years, different attorneys with that group, et cetera, a number of times. And so now the CDC says, actually, that natural immunity, it's the same. Or in some cases, it's actually better, we're told. So you do have some options, and you should be aware of them. I go back to the fact that I consulted with my doctor, and he said, Jeff, I'm getting the vaccine. I would suggest you get it. Choice is yours. Heidi and I had conversations, and we both got the double Moderna, I guess it was, and then the booster. And I think now I'm kind of done. Heidi actually contracted COVID, despite the fact that she had 2 vaccines and the booster. And she said, yeah, it was kind of like the flu for a couple of days, and then she was done. And this is quite some time ago, so, I mean, it's not like it happened yesterday. I consider myself fortunate. I haven't gotten it, and in all candor, I don't want to. I don't want to get that. I don't want to get a cold. I don't like seasonal allergies. I don't want the flu. I don't want anything. You know what I mean? I want to be as healthy as I possibly can, and that is my ultimate goal. Coming up at 4:35, we got to help some guys, and I mean young guys, over at Lakeside Baseball. I think they might be headed to the Little League World Series. There seems to be some buzz about that, and we're going to chat about that at 4:35. And I've got an opportunity for you, 4:15, just a half hour from now. I've got a $100 Visa gift card I would love to give to you, and I will do that for you at 4:15. It is 3:45. Jeff Katz, News Radio, WRVA.
Love the mochas here.
Too bad my budget doesn't.
Sarah, don't give it up. State Farm has options to get you a surprisingly great rate.
Thanks, Jake. Next round's on me.
Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Call or go to statefarm.com for a quote today.
Odyssey knows that football fans can't get enough football. That's why we've got nonstop football coverage on the free Odyssey app. Podcasts and live shows dedicated to every pro team. NFL play-by-play and enough game talk for the most diehard fans. Local radio stations talking football, interviews with star players and coaches, and football fans being fans.
What kind of play calling was that?
Listen to everything you love about football, live and on demand with the free Odyssey app. Get in the game and download today.
How's your mental health? I'm listening with Jewel.
One day I was in a dressing room trying to steal a dress, and I was like, I'm a statistic. I'm homeless, I'm stealing. And I realized if I don't change something, I'm going to end up in jail or dead. And I remember this quote that was attributed to Buddha that said, happiness doesn't depend on who you are or what you have. It depends on what you think. And so I decided to see if I could turn my life around one thought at a time.
More at imlistening.org. Talk saves lives.
A bad team facing a good team is never completely out of it.
Nick Kostos, co-host of You Better You Bet, 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern on the BetQL network.
There's 162 games in the season. The best teams are going to lose 60-plus times, and the worst teams are going to win 60-plus times. Each night is its own individual entity. That's what makes betting on the baseball regular season so much fun.
All the insight you need to bet smarter is at BetQL.com. And listen to You Better You Bet with Nick Kostos and Ken Barkley, streaming weekdays from 3 to 7 p.m. Eastern on Odyssey.
Hey everyone, it's Kenny Mayne, the host of Hey Mayne, the Kenny Mayne Talks to Famous People podcast. Made a list of people we thought would say yes, and most of them did. Not going to call out the others who didn't. Actually, what the others do mainly is don't answer. So not really saying no. So really, our potential audience for guests and for listening audience is the whole planet. No one really has said no. So we want you to find it on the Odyssey app or wherever you get your podcast.